this is the Anna's Place podcast, and this is actually the last one at this location. We're here at Hotel Indigo. We're moving farther downtown for the next one, but the theme of this next cocktail party is haunted hotels. So we've got a couple hotels we're going to go over, and I'm going to be a selfish little bitch and go last because mine's in Nebraska.
Yeah, not this one though, because we don't need to talk about meth and ghosts.
This is the story of Troy. He just smoked foilies in the attic until he died.
Thank you, that's my story.
Yeah, I've seen like the weird shit they make pipes out of. I lost a bet one time actually sitting on a patio and I lost a bet because the guy was like, "Oh, I can make a pipe out of anything." I'm like, blur. Ben, you wanna start us with one of your hotels?
Yeah, I guess maybe let's start with the oldest hotel.
Okay.
Probably on the list.
Mine is 18.
Oh, I got you beat by miles.
Okay, cool.
So I kind of wanted to get away from the U.S. hotels, and it's just because I've done a lot of research on them already, because I planned a road trip that I never actually went on because COVID happened. But I was planning like a whole summer of just like staying at haunted locations.
Okay.
And so I just knew all of these ones, and I also knew like half of them were kind of like, they look good in the back. So I was like, okay, well let me like try to find something that's like really old, really weird, and that sort of took me to the old world. And I found a lot of like really interesting ones, and I kind of settled on this one just I think because of like how important the space was at one point in time before it was what's now, it's a bed and breakfast, I guess you could call it now. But any one of us, if we decided to travel to France, could actually stay there if they're not booked up. So I call it a hotel. So this is the Chateau de Brissac. It's in the Loire Valley in France, but it actually dates originally back to the 1100s and the House of Anjou. This is kind of when, I'm not distinctly British, so maybe I'm a little off here, but this is kind of when a lot of British people don't like to talk about where all their kings were for French. You mean all of them were for fucking French? And the House of Anjou produced 2 to 3 centuries of English kings. And so they actually built this as a castle and fortress during the wars. And if you follow the Anjou kings, you'll run into like some very important French and English kings. And so this sort of passed hands a lot. Essentially, the Anjou kings ruled up until the War of the Roses in one way or another. In fact, the Lancasters, who were a big part of War of the Roses. The Lannisters, if you're a Game of Thrones nerd. So the Lancasters were lineage from the House of Anjou. So that's how long that this like bloodline prevailed. But we're going to go to a very, very specific point in time with King Charles VII. King Charles VII was a bit of a woman. He had many mistresses. In fact, his mistresses held more importance in court than his actual wife did. So King Charles VII had a lot of illegitimate children, and he was, for the most part, not terrible to them, unlike what most of history would teach us about bastard children of royalty.
He was just He was just hoeing.
Just hoeing around.
Yeah, it's like that. And I mean, when you're the king of England, I guess you probably got enough for child support.
Also, we didn't know venereal disease like we do now.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't think I went into enough detail to know if he died of syphilis or not. Let's just say he did.
I'm just imagining like if you got to get like you fucking tested, but like it's an 1100s Q-tip. Like, I'm good, dude.
It's just a fucking rusty.
I'm just gonna let it burn out at you, man.
Yeah, just scraping me with a rusty fucking spoon. Just a piece of fucking burled wood. At least we're not going off the rails already. So this is sort of in the 1400s, and now the chateau is the Chateau de Bresse, or Breze, or Brise. I don't speak French. I can pronounce some wine. That's about it. And the Baron, Count de Bresse. I'm also not a historian. King Charles marries off one of his illegitimate daughters to the Count of, let's call him Count. I think it's a fun word to say because of chocolate. So the Count of Bresse marries the illegitimate daughter of King Charles II, and she's well known as, like, it wasn't like some like behind the door. I was like, hey, I'm marrying my bastard daughter off to this guy. Yeah, so like this is a very political marriage, and her name is Charlotte. So she becomes Charlotte. She ends up in what is very, very much a political marriage, and quite a loveless marriage at this point. There's only so much history written about her because she did not survive this encounter. Throughout the many years of their marriage, she eventually takes a lover. And it's somewhat well documented that he was one of the king's huntsmen. And again, we're also talking about a time where you had to kind of hunt for food. So kings and barons and dukes and all that would have huntsmen who would go out and hunt shit. And
It's like fucking Uber Eats with a gat.
yeah, or a longbow.
Yeah, longbow.
But also, like, if you're gonna have an affair, like, that's kind of the baddest dude, though, right?
Okay, yeah.
Because, like, as much as, like, knights are cool and everything, most of the times they're just sweaty oafs who took an oath that they don't ever plan on keeping, right?
Yeah.
It's all about land and royalty. Like, knights aren't that fucking cool for a lot of these sort of Middle Ages. Most of them are fucking assholes and thieves. But, like, huntsmen, like, that's like the dude. Like, if I was a pretty young lady, I'd be like, that's the dude who just goes out into the woods and comes back and feeds my fucking family. Like, so I would be like, hey, loveless marriage, huntsman, who am I gonna get dicked down by? Like, so they start having an affair, and again, there's only so much information. A lot of it is very sort of blown out of proportion in favor of like a more tragic sort of story of a lonely ghost. But it is quite well documented that one of his servants found them, alerted him in the night. He wakes up and does catch them very much red-handed. After that, no one really knows what happened, but they know that neither one of them were alive in the morning.
Oh.
So the means in which he dispatched his wife and his wife's lover were really sort of not known.
Could have been him or maybe
Yeah, I'm assuming,
Yeah.
he has guards and all of this and all of that. And this is sort of the lore, because historically it is known that he didn't stay at the chateau again for the rest of his life. The lore very much is that the chateau is haunted by Charlotte. And apparently it was so haunted that at night he would hear her wails, and this is why he left the chateau, never to return. The reality, fuck you, I hope it's true. I hope she haunted him fucking forever. The reality is like it's tragedy. Like, do you really want to stay in the house that you murdered your wife and no one did anything about it because you're nobility? Or maybe that bitch haunted you forever. Yeah,
Sucks to suck.
so she's known as Madame Verte, the Green Lady, for the very elegant green gown that she apparently wears. It's to the point now where it's no longer the Chateau de Brez, it's now the Chateau Brissac. It's under a different family who has owned it for hundreds of years. They've renovated it, they've rebuilt it. This is where the bed and breakfast hotel sort of comes into play, where they open that. They also still live on the premises themselves. So you actually, when you're staying there, you're not that far away from like legitimately a long line of French nobles in what is the tallest castle in France is the Chateau de Brissac as well. But it's to the point where the Brissac family literally in press and everything just straight up say like, no, she lives here. This is like, she's a resident here. They sort of treat her ghost as if it is very much just another person that is just roaming the halls of their chateau, sort of at all times.
What if she like changes rooms on the regular, so they gotta like
It is
shift around?
I mean, obviously there's always like stories and ghost hunters and all that shit. So she does appear in several places, but mostly in the tallest tower, which of course, as we know in medieval history, the tower is where you throw people who you hate.
Where she was murdered.
Again, sort of unknown.
Yeah.
It's very, very possible. I tend to think this is probably a crime of passion.
Yeah.
Where he just found two naked people in bed and just started swinging his sword like a madman, which is how in my brain that probably plays out.
Crash out.
It also could play out the fact that since it's somewhat well documented that a servant found them, that he had time to rile his guards, which I would do because someone whose job it is to kill wild animals is not someone I want to get in a knife fight with. So it is very possible that they did end up in the tower before they were killed. It is also well known that the Green Lady, the ghost itself, is missing her eyes, and this is from many, many accounts of the sightings of the Green Lady. So this is sort of indisputable that she is missing her eyes, which does tell me a little bit about the vengeance that he wrought upon her after all this. Yeah, to me, this is it is a tragic story of who don't do arranged marriages.
Yeah.
Like that's just what this comes down to. Like there's a lot of loveless marriages in the world, and you have modern day we have the option of getting out of that and with relative ease at this point. But you know, in those times, especially if you're a woman, and especially if you're a woman whose father is the king, and on top of that, you're not one of his legitimate daughters, there's not a lot of places that there's not a lot of ways to better your life. So of course you're going to agree to this marriage where it's like, okay, I'm going to live in the tallest castle in France.
Better get banished.
Yeah, and be married to this rich duke or baron or count.
Nah.
And so, you know, and then of course, as things go in life, if you're in a loveless marriage and there's a more interesting person that you see all the time, you're just going to drift that direction. And that's how I see this as very much a modern day equivalent of how a lot of loveless marriages end. And hopefully they don't end as violently as this one.
Yeah.
And if they do, fuck you, I hope that bitch haunts you forever. That's the story of the Green Lady. Showed the Prince.
Fucking A.
Bobby would put this on my list.
Yeah.
And I probably would have done it without doing this research because if I'm going to Europe, I'd want to go to wine country in France.
Yeah.
Loire Valley is
No, it's actually
that's fucking wine country.
I was about to say that as soon as you start talking about this, like, why are you saying so many fucking wine words? I don't know anything about France except for the goddamn wine words.
Yeah, I mean, but Loire Valley is one of the most prominent wine regions in France, and so I'm like, I might have stayed here not knowing it was haunted, just because I'm like, I can stay in the tallest castle in France in Loire Valley.
Right.
Yeah, fuck, I'm staying there, and then this fucking no-eyed bitch is creeping me out the whole time. I'm like, this is what happens. Pretty dressed though.
So does she show up as like in green?
Yeah, she wears a long flowing green gown.
Okay.
Yeah, but and like the easiest way to look her up is just look up the Green Lady France or Madame Verte, and she's a very, very, very well-known ghost in France and one of the most prominent ghosts in that region that is talked about anywhere. So she's a pretty well-known story.